Hi, welcome to Body Lab. My name is Ben Sanford and I'll be your guide today. So I'm down here at the river, which is one of my favorite places in the world, a place where I grew up running around and playing in the woods and being a little human animal. And so what we're going to be talking about today is the Body Lab, and it's part of the Primal Lab series, and it's really kind of the foundation in a way is how I see it. It's the most primal piece because it has to do with you and your body, your physicalness. So just want to briefly describe a little bit about this. If you haven't seen some of the other videos, I wanted to describe Primal Lab real quick. So the word primal is referring to essential, original, most important, the most fundamental part of something. And in that sense, it's kind of like a type of purity. And so whenever we're discussing or training in something in the primal labs, we're taking it down to its fundamental principles and its foundation. And that's where we study it from. And there's something about that that reveals more truth, to put it simply. What is primal has been with us the longest and has survived over the most over all the broadest circumstances and conditions. And so the aspects of yourself, or if you look at yourself in a primal way, you're really delving deep into your ancient past, into your membership as an animal and a human species, and really as a wild creature. And we're not just doing that at a superficial level either. So primal also includes our instinctive mode of being and our awareness, and these core features of our being human that have preserved us and protected us throughout time. So and then the laboratory is it's a fun word, first of all, because it sounds sciencey and sounds like study and taking something serious. But and I've had a lab since I was a kid, through my whole life. And there's something about the word laboratory, which actually comes from an alchemical phrase, Latin phrase, which is ora et labora, and laboratorium means a place of work, prayer and work, and ora et labora means to pray and to work. So there's something about looking at our training as a passion and a work, a practice, and not just a physical practice, but bringing our whole being into that practice and letting it be a deepening and a growth and a transformation, actually. So when we honor something and make it sacred like that, to make it important, make it matter, we get a lot from it. It really rewards us in incredible ways. So anyway, the Body Lab, in the past I've also called this training humanimal, which is blending obviously the word human and animal, and it's really reaching into that human-animal part of yourself and awakening something that you already know and understand. You already are. We're not trying to add really much. It's more about taking away. It's about removing the unessentials and removing the overlays, the things that you've added onto your identity and onto your experience that in some ways may be useful and have protected you, but often end up being kind of artifacts of a traumatic life, survival in our current condition. And so they're things that we can let go, or at least understand and not live through, if that makes sense. So the Body Lab takes us on a journey into a primal contact with yourself as a human being, in the context of the earth. And with that said, it does blend into obviously the other two labs, which is the Earth Lab, which is a study of living with the earth and through the skills primarily of tracking and survival, and then the Soul Lab, which really looks at the process of healing, healing oneself, other people, other beings, and the earth. So, um, so the Body Lab experience, how we go about it is we focus on three main attributes of being human. I mean, there's tons of stuff we could do, and these things are kind of universal perspectives, and therefore they do touch on many other things. So it's something that one of the values of training at a primal level is that it scales into any part of life, or it maps onto any part of life, and you can see it at every level of your life, and that's really powerful. So the lessons that you gain in the Body Lab will be transferable into your life in the other world. Okay, so so the three elements, or the three perspectives that we focus on, are number one, awareness. Simply maybe defining awareness as your capacity to experience, everything from your sensory awareness to deeper instincts and inner knowings, and the conscious part of your consciousness is really what we're exploring. So awareness actually, if we dissect that, it goes into a few other layers that we focus on, and we describe it in terms of observation, and this is your ability to perceive and kind of purify your perception in a sense, so that you're actually present with what is. And then there's a layer of interpretation or story that we look at, which is another lens, another part of your awareness, where we add meaning to what we're experiencing. And finally, there's another layer that emerges after working with this or practicing that, which I just refer to as witness. And the witness is, this, I don't want to say transcendent, because that might be misunderstood, but it moves beyond and includes your experience. And so it's a sense of being able to have more choice with more awareness and respond to what's going on in your life. Another element that we focus on, so those were under awareness, by the way. So the next kind of layer of Body Lab is conditioning. And so conditioning, this is an interesting one, and often takes a lot of deprogramming around it. So conditioning has to do with, in the sense I'm using this, has to do with resilience and your relationship to what is. Sorry, just saw a huge bird fly in. Looks like a vulture or an eagle. And when we expand our ability to relate to what we're experiencing, it changes everything. So just as an example, many of us are uncomfortable with cold. Cold is one of those things that's just very deeply something that we're always trying to kind of avoid. And in a way, maybe you have to get in the cold water for some reason, And the first thing that comes up usually is our stories about cold. And there's all this resistance because of all of our negative experiences with cold, because it can be uncomfortable, right? But with resilience training, what we look at is we really just allow ourselves to experience something like cold, fresh and anew, and see what it actually feels like, because often we are living through our past stories and we can't connect to how it actually feels in the moment. So, we might explore cold, and how we do it in our training is we explore with little micro edges. We take things on these do these small steps and small gains that add up and create a comfortable and powerful experience that you own and you feel good about, and you don't, I guess what I'm trying to say here is we're not trying to become tough, So there's a difference between resilience and toughness. Toughness has a rigidity to it, and there's a separation factor. If you are trying to tough something out, anyone, you can go get in cold water and just tough it out and not connect to what you're doing and just can't wait till you get on the other side of it, right? But to actually experience what you're doing and actually make contact with all the sensation and let it move through you in a way that it doesn't run into anything and cause pain, that's a different thing, you know. And what that offers, it opens up another way of life where you just have more access to more experience. Because if you're kind of shut down in this little channel that you're comfortable living in whatever situation, and you don't want to touch discomfort, you don't want to go to that edge, whatever the discomfort is, then it just limits your options and it limits your possibilities and what you're going to see, and what you're going to experience in life. So it's a gradual process of kind of opening up those margins a little bit, those boundaries, and softening those edges until you just have more capacity. So, and you are able to fit into more environments, which is really what is meant by the survival of the fittest. You know, it's not the strongest and toughest. It's actually the most adaptive and the one that can blend in and fit appropriately whatever the context is. That's the kind of fitness we're after. It's adaptation. So some conditioning has a process that goes on as well. There's some layers to it. It usually starts with contact or making connection. We want to make sure that you are present to what you're experiencing. And once that happens, and that's usually through awareness training, then we go into this process of edges. And the edges are where the learning and the changing and the growing happens, these little micro edges. And there's some common edges like I mentioned, cold, like dark, like wet, like bugs, just uncomfortable stuff, out in the woods, and out in reality, it might be rain, whatever. And that's the kind of stuff we confront on these small scales, these appropriate kind of gentle processes and exercises and all of these things. And it just kind of gradually happens, and pretty soon you just find yourself being wild in a way that you once wouldn't have been able to do. You would have run into too many blocks. And that's where the third stage of conditioning is what I call home. And that's just a place where you've surrendered to your conditions and your circumstances, you've let go of the resistance, and you find yourself in this whole other world that opens up where you're part of it, and it's like coming home. It's a beautiful place that it's one of my favorite experiences, and it produces a huge amount of flow as well. So that's conditioning. The third part of our Body Lab training is movement. And I could also expand that to say fitness, in the sense that you're probably accustomed to thinking of fitness, but as I mentioned, true fitness is really based on adaptability. So movement is another huge element of our training, and it kind of flows right into every other area, just like awareness does. And some of the core ways we look at movement are starting with stability, which means, do you know where your center is? Do you have good alignment? And basically, are you in your body? And do you know where you are? And then we move to mobility, which is our capacity to kind of move through ranges of motion and coordinate ourselves, and with stability, move through different motion groupings. And from there, we start to add intensity and just see your capacity, and see what you're able to do. We go through this progression of basically practice, play, and performance. So it starts out, where you might have to be kind of intentional in these basic movement patterns, and then we start to get good at them, and they go into our unconscious competence, and we don't have to think about it anymore. And then we start to be able to play, and play is just a huge training ground. It's a huge thing we use. In fact, I reference the whole journey as a big game, as it's play. And from there, we go to performance, which is where you might bring up a challenge of some kind, or actually have something that you're training for or want to get good at, and we aim at that, so that you're able to make all of this matter in a whole new way. So that's our three elements. There's a lot more to the movement thing too, by the way, but I think it's, you know, we get into it over time, and it's just a fun, long journey that we all do together. So you'll find yourselves being able to move and practice throughout your day. You'll be able to practice the movement stuff all the time. You don't have to go to do a workout, you know. In fact, we don't even call it working out. It's more like practice, and it's little games and little tiny micro drills. And then there's some actual more like intensity type training that you can add on to that. And there's also recovery type training, which is a big part of it. And so in the Primal Labs, either through Body Lab or Soul Lab, I do get into nutrition, and we get into recovery and some of the other elements of health as well. So yeah, that is the kind of the content of what we focus on in the class. And what we'll be doing is layering this into the other labs, and all of this stuff, because it is holistic, which my definition for holistic is to take as many perspectives as possible on something, while also looking at it in as many layers as possible. And actually, you could even say as many scales as possible. So, and when we do that, we expand, our knowledge and make it fit into more areas of our life, and it's something that you're never not doing in a way. So, so the Body Lab is a super fun, subtle at times. There's a lot of subtle exercises, but if you allow them to do their work and you don't try, you just just practice and find yourself expanding, it's really powerful. So anyway, I look forward to our adventure together at the lab, and I hope you check out some of the other labs too and see this as a comprehensive package. I'm doing a little introduction for the Earth Lab and for the Soul Lab, and so you have a sense of what those are. And when you bring them all together, it touches on this place or this phenomena, something that emerges that my teacher Tom Brown and his teacher, grandfather Stalking Wolf, would refer to as fusion, and kind of a oneness. There's something that happens when we integrate ourselves in all of our different capacities and all of our different layers, and then we integrate ourselves with our connection through the earth, and then we do that into the rest of mystery, and that's kind of the three layers of these labs. So it's a really powerful journey. I've been told that it's humanimal. This Body Lab was most people's favorite training that I've trained with in the last 10 years. And we did this as a physical class, for years and years, and still continue with this as more of a supplement, but I'm hoping to preserve this online and get it to you so that wherever you are, you can try on some of these ways of being and become the human animal that you are. So I look forward to training with you and seeing you either online or at the lab, and I hope that this is inspiring for you, and that even if this isn't the thing that you do, that I hope that it inspires you to do something, to find the thing that's for you. And otherwise, be well, take care, and keep going.